All right. Hello everyone. I hope you're having a good day. So several things are going on. I'm going to talk about Bitcoin first. I'm going to take up a different chart. This one is Arts' chart in OneX, and I just wanted to see what's going on much higher time frames, right? And at this point, it's not too good. I mean, the monthly chart definitely hasn't recovered yet, and that's expected. We're still on a red candle, and we haven't seen a green candle ever since this one. So, okay, this is fine. On the weekly chart, though, there's a different perspective that I've seen emerge in the last 3 weeks, right? And what's been happening since is that we've had one rejection of the downtrend from the all-time high, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit for this. It almost got cleanly rejected off the weekly key zone, right? And I had my eyes on this, and which is why I was very bearish above 10,000 in the last few days. I was expecting a rejection here. What I did not expect, however, was a move so high on the weekly chart, right? So short term, yesterday and day before yesterday, I was in multiple shorts, and I usually don't short Bitcoin, but it looked like there's going to be significantly more downside. However, on a weekly perspective, you might notice this, right? This is known as a bullish divergence. This is a bullish divergence that is from this low right now to this low, right? So this is a very clear divergence, right? On the weekly chart, but the RSI is a little bit more confusing than this, because while the RSI also has, from one bottom to the other, it has a divergence. The RSI also has no divergence here, which means that from this low to this low, which makes it the adjacent low, right? And from this low, there is no divergence. So in this case, I see two possibilities. First is that the stock RSI is too smooth in this case to be considered as a bullish divergence, because the RSI is not showing me one. And usually you have to take preference in the case of the RSI, because while the SRSI gives far more indications on smaller time frames, it's not supposed to give an accurate representation of momentum over much larger time frames, right? So in this case, for example, this was a very clear very clear healthy high, so to speak, right? But ever since we've seen a downtrend. So what I think in due time will happen is that there is some chance on the weekly chart that we'll break this low, if I'm wrong about the stock RSI having a bullish divergence, right? And keep this in mind, I'm not fighting anybody. I'm not saying that it will go there. I'm saying that it's something to consider, and that with sufficient evidence on lower time frames, this should be, you should be able to enter a short position, or the contrary, if this downtrend is broken. And this is a hidden bullish divergence. So on the daily chart, things are looking slightly better. Sorry, they're looking slightly worse than they did before. We've had a rejection of the daily key zone. We've also had a rejection cleanly off the cloud. What I was expecting was this thing, where we first got rejected here. I wasn't expecting this before this move. I was expecting it after. So it's not technically a prediction, but now that I've seen it, this move followed by move to the downside, we'll come to test 8800, and I'm going to talk about the significance of this area for some time today. Like, it's very important to my analysis as of right now, right? Followed by a move to the upside to test hopefully this area. So sometime around March 6th right? We should see a bullish confirmation should we break the downtrend, and this area is going to act as a resistance in the future, right? So what's the problem? The problem is now there's a very clear bearish divergence on the stock RSI, right? Why am I so concerned? So this divergence indicates that there is a high likelihood that we will see a lower low on the daily chart, because that's what happens typically when you have bearish divergences. The move down, unless there is an untimely reversal, tends to see a lower low, right? And where would that lower low be? So if I was to quickly make a fib retracement, and I cannot consider this move anymore, so I'm going to take this high here, right? So this was a clear roughly 79% rejection, or this was a move correction to the upside. So what can we expect, right? First of all, a correction to the downside if the bearish divergence works out, right, is this region 3200, which would make sense because it's a former supply region and it's been a former resistance. Again, I'm not fudding, I'm just doing technical analysis. I'm really sorry if you don't like this, but it's just there. And yeah, so because it got rejected here, I should expect a move to the downside because there's a bearish divergence. There is also a possibility that if there has to be a move to the upside, right, where will it come from? So where is the supply zone right now? Hold on. Right, so the supply zone is right here, right, at 8100. Notice though where the 0.5 is again, right? It's at 8800. So the first thing is that this area is also, this area right now is the weekly key zone. Sorry, it's the daily key zone right now, right? It's a fib retracement at 0.5, which is bullish by nature if it bounces there. And it's been a former support area, but it broke, right? And it's been resistance, but then the resistance also broke on the daily chart, right? So on a lower time frame, I'll talk about this in a little bit more detail, but on this time frame specifically, I'm seeing this area being a support region, a supply or a support region, right? There's a very high likelihood of that. What I hope to see is the RSI fully flat when we approach 8800, which will take maybe 4 or maybe 5 days in order to meet this target, and a very clean bounce, something like this bounce right here, right, in order to establish a bullish trend. Because once there's a higher high, we're safe, we're effectively okay to retest the all-time high. But you know, you test the lower things first, with this area is acting as a resistance. The next thing is the 4-hour chart, and I'm going to go to my own charts for this. Alright, never mind, we'll see the 4-hour chart on this chart. So yeah, 8800 is also the bottom of the cloud on the 4-hour chart. And by the way, I tried to call this end-to-end yesterday, and people were saying that it'll bounce off the cloud. Yeah, I'll talk about why it did not bounce, right? The obvious rejection from the cloud followed by a bearish TK cross, that was obvious yesterday, which is why a lot of people are short already. You should be, and I'll talk about why you should already be short if you're not. And if you're not short, there is one more possibility here that will allow you to, you know, get a short entry soon enough. So this area is a potential support region, but usually what happens is once an end-to-end starts, right, it's supposed to go right through the cloud, which confuses me. So will this area act as a support, or will it, you know, go right through the cloud. We'll see. I don't intend to start a long position here. I intend to start a long position once 10,000 is cleared again. Until then, I'm not bullish, right? So I'm expecting resistance at this level. Fair enough. All right. So once this area 10,000 is broken, I can think about a long position, which means that until then, I'm not convinced in the uptrend. Now, we need to talk about the head and shoulders and why people should believe in those, and why there was a little bit of a volume inconsistency. Something that everybody has noticed, and I think that's fair. And on my part, I did my very best to predict this move. This particular leg here was not expected, right? So I'll talk about why that happened. Okay, so first of all, the head and shoulders, and it's a very predictable pattern, right? A clear reversal of trend. So this was an uptrend right here. Head and shoulders occur as trend reversals, right? So this was the reversal of trend. Now what happens is you see a lot of volume on the left shoulder. You see lighter volume on the head, which convinces you of a down move by having what is called a bearish divergence on a lower time frame, right? Was the bearish divergence there? Yes, it was, right? So there was lowering of volume followed by a bearish divergence. Now, once there was a bearish divergence, you should be convinced of a move to the downside that is below the current low, or the low at that point, right? Which is why we were convinced that the head and shoulders had already occurred. And I called a shot right here, 11,700. This was on 21st, right? Hang on. Okay. Now, once this has happened, right, you expect a right shoulder that is on lower volume than the head and the left shoulder. That was the inconsistency, because the head had immense volume, followed by a shoulder that has slightly lower volume, while all this should be in a declining volume. And this was the confusing part, where the head had more declining volume than the left shoulder itself, which is fine. I mean, you had your confirmation anyway, right? So if you shorted the breakdown of the head and shoulders, that was immediately a profitable trade. But what happens in head and shoulders is that you see a return move to the neckline. And here's the confusing part. So on a lower time frame, I did not know at the time if this neckline here was there, which means that while this neckline was there, it was obviously broken, and very clearly broken twice, right? Which had me very confused. So on a higher time frame, I'm supposed to see a return move. The return move was exceeded significantly, almost by $200, which is why I could not plan a short move. And I did not also see this bear flag coming. But once it appeared, though, I started shorting somewhere around 10,000, and I'm not holding that short right now. I'm waiting for an up move. I've already taken profit. But all this time I've been calling shots. So that's I think on my part as a trader, I think I've done fine in the last 3-4 days in predicting shots. And the important thing to keep in mind is that your psychology just should not be stuck in this region. This was hope, right? It should not be stuck here. We had an uptrend, right? But once you've had a reversal, change your mind. And once we see a reversal at some point here, you should feel free to change your mind again, right? So don't get stuck in positions depending on how you feel, and it's not going to work out anyway. Now, the first thing here, and why the 8800 level is very important, is because this is the target for the head and shoulders. The altitude, simply copy paste it to the right shoulder, the bottom of the right shoulder, to the neckline and downwards. So this is roughly 8700, right? There is also a bear flag. I was out yesterday, so I ended up shorting this region. Not a great shot, and I had to exit somewhere around 8700. And I'm still expecting a move to the upside, maybe a small correction. Typically, there is a retest of the broken support, right? So this support is at 9900. What you should be expecting is a small move to the upside in the next, perhaps the next day or two. And I don't advise you to long it. Instead, short it when it gets to this level, and then you can see what happens. Although, notice what happened here. The price action preferred completing the bear flag as opposed to properly being retraced from the head and shoulders, right? Does this invalidate the head and shoulders? It depends. So if the volume of the breakout was greater than the volume of the breakdown from the head and shoulders, I would have been convinced this was a break to the upside and the head and shoulders had been invalidated. However, there was no such thing. So once the bear flag had broken down, you should be short. What I haven't seen yet is a retest. So I should be expecting a retest anytime soon, right? The target for this bear flag now is also 8800. So you see how things are adding up on all time frames. So it's from the weekly chart, that's an area of support. From the daily chart, that's the daily key zone. From the 4-hour chart, that's the bottom of the 4-hour cloud. From the 1-hour chart, you have a target for the head and shoulders and everything that's ending up here, right? Okay, so what do we do now? Now we zoom out a little bit. What is 8800 also? It's also a 50% retrace of this entire move up, right? So if we had to continue the move up, we would have to retrace 50 to 61%, 62%, and then continue to the upside. So is there a possibility that this level will break? Yes, a very significant possibility that it will break down. But I'm 50-50, as in I can expect to break up too, which is why I will not be longing here. I consider it too dangerous a move. Plus my stop loss will have to be either 8400 or 8100, which will take like the head off my shoulders if I was to long this move and it did not work out and I still got stopped out, right? Because if this is a reversal, it's a very good reversal, but if it's not a reversal, I'll be taking a huge hit to my balance, and I don't want that. So I'd rather see a confirmed reversal to the upside, and then we'll see what happens. That's Bitcoin for now. That's pretty much Bitcoin for now. And in a nutshell, what you should be expecting is a retest of this broken support, followed somewhere perhaps 9500. We'll see a bounce to the upside, followed by a move to the downside, right? Simple enough. Hold on. Is it not working? Is the stream off? Hold on. Right. Video output low. Hang on. What I'm doing now is I'm shutting off the Wi-Fi of everybody in the house. Let me do that quickly. The stream should be fine. Cool. So yeah, that's Bitcoin for now. Let's see. When looking for an edge-to-edge play, do you take into account that the price overshoots the bottom of the cloud, or do you aim a bit above? Yeah, so that's what I'm saying, right? I do not know if hang on, I'm just going to take up this chart instead. I do not know if the price will stop here. I'm not sure, right? So if it was to break to the upside, the first resistance the price would have is 9500, right where we're taking support right now, right? That's the first resistance the price will have when it's breaking 88, when it's bouncing off 8800. If it breaks above 9500, you can start piling up early longs to the upside, for the upside. So that should be about 10,000 right at this resistance. I also like how the downtrend is interacting with a possible move to the upside right here, right? That makes sense geometrically. It also makes sense from the point of fibs for it to stop at 8800. So there is a small possibility that if the crowd breaks down, what happens? So from a fib perspective, if the cloud was to break down, the next immediate support is at 8100. It's not at 88, it's not anywhere in between, right? But as long as you're expecting 8800, you should keep your eyes open for this region, right? If you want to start thinking of a long move with stop losses at 88%. So if you were to start longing, that would be from 7100 to 8100 with a stop loss at 6600. Because if it gets to 6600, it's most likely going to the extension, which is 4300. I hope that doesn't happen. Right. Now we're going to get started on alts. The first we have ETC, but I'm going to update this list very quickly. There's ADA, XLM. We've done XLM before. What else? Hold up. Alright, so let's get started with ETC. And this chart's useless for now. I'm going to just pull up an idea I had from a few days ago. This was a couple of weeks ago, a little bit more than that. I think I discussed it in the last stream too. So bear with me while I take reference for my own charts. I'll do it again, never mind. Okay, so this up move, right? You had plenty time to long this, and I called the long, which I'll show you right now. On 14th of February, I called this particular move, right? Long here, stop loss here, move to the upside. Where to the upside? Okay. Hang on. This was the up move I called. With a buy at the green zone and the sell at the red zone. So this was the trade I called on 14th of February. This was how it worked out. Worked out almost perfectly. As a matter of fact, it worked out twice, right? So if it happens twice, that's even better. Now, there are several problems with this mover. While I take into account optimal trade entries when I'm entering trades, right? There is a second part of fibs that you should also take into account, and that is the strength of the move, right? So while I consider previous fibs for an entry, this is what the fib currently is looking like. So what do you not want to see? You want the price to cross the optimal trade entry if you're looking for a bullish move to the upside. So once it gets there, you can start, piling up longs. But what I'm seeing right now is very different. I'm seeing a pennant forming where one pennant is broken out. There's a possibility for a second one, right? What you can also expect is this pennant, and I'm going to make this a symmetric triangle because, well, it doesn't qualify as one. So let's take another pennant, never mind. Okay. The first thing to observe is that this area is acted as support now, right, for this move. Followed by several optimal trade entries on lower time frames. So if I consider let's see, that is a 50% retracement, not exactly worth longing in my opinion. I could constrain this a little bit, I guess. Your longs probably wouldn't have hit, right, on BitMEX at least, with the kind of bullish behavior I've seen on Ethereum Classic anyway. So the move on Ethereum Classic has worked out fine, but now we have to look for a re-entry, right? So how do we plan for that? And here I'm going to take into account this fib. This was a very clear re-entry where there was a stop loss hunt to the downside, which is very good. That's very healthy. That shows that the strength itself is very healthy, and then the smart money start trying to enter Ethereum Classic, right? That's one sign. Now the thing is, there is already an active target from this move, right? And that is a move to 0.00387, So why have we reversed early, and what's causing this reversal? There is an interim resistance here that's causing problems, right? While I was not expecting this, my initial long was this region, like I showed you, with a take profit very early, somewhere around here. I had some profits laid down around this region, so I did not exactly, let the winner ride. But at this point, it looks like it's getting rejected, right? So what should we think here? The first thing to notice is if this region, the 50% support region, acts as support. If it does, you can enter right away. You don't have to think too much about it. But if it breaks down, this is a re-entry for a bullish trade, right? What should you be looking out for? And I hope this does not happen, and I hope you do not see any bearish behavior. But I want to look out for a head and shoulders now, right? And I saw this yesterday. I did not want to discuss it because at the time Bitcoin was making moves, so this move could not be trusted to the upside. But should this region act as a resistance on the way down, my first doubt will be confirmed, in which case this right shoulder won't be very high. It'll probably be at this level somewhere, right? If something like that happens. But that also means that we'll come to retest this pennant here. So let's see what happens. I'm seeing if this region acts as support. If it does, we can think about a move to the upside. For now, I'm not re-entering ETC. I think I'm out for the moment because I've already seen immense gains. I don't want to, involve myself in what is already a realized potential or realized profit, right? For now, ETC is done to the upside. Something to also keep in mind is that on a macro scale, the target for this descending triangle is right here, right? So sometime in the future, I'm expecting it to reach 0.0054. That should be the expectation from this up move. There is the Callisto hard fork, right, which I think will cause problems for Ethereum Classic. It should see a significant sell-off. I'm also seeing signs of fading momentum to the upside. Volume has significantly gone down. So I think on the RSI, there should be a bearish divergence too. Yeah, that's not exactly a bearish divergence. So I'm going to rule that out for now. Something to watch out for is the possibility of a rising wedge. You should be careful here. There's a channel right now, which we'll see if this region acts as support. So the immediate move to the downside should be either right here or right before it at this level. So we'll see what happens. As of right now, no ideas on Ethereum Classic. We'll see if there's a re-entry level. The next thing is engine. I think I've done engine before too. Okay. Yeah, it looks like it has some ways to go. That's almost a 3, or almost, how much is that? 12 times to the upside? 12x to the upside? Yeah, that is okay. So from purely a FIB perspective, this has already bounced a few times on this retracement. I'm going to have to assume a little bit of an approximation here because there are a lot of wicks on the daily, right? So I'm assuming there are some there should be a better fib that got a 60 or an optimal trade entry at this level. But the thing is, it's bouncing off, it's getting rejected off this level, right? While the target for the up move is very high, we haven't actually gotten to the full retracement, right? Now there's a possibility that the 50% retracement acts as a support, which is given that there is some there is a bit of an upward trend at the moment on the daily chart. I wouldn't count on it as of right now, right? Because first of all, the stock RSI hasn't even gone oversold on the daily chart. So that will be an early sign that you should start buying, and that will probably be at this level, right? So that's what you should expect from Engine on the daily chart. On the 4 hour, this should get a bit interesting, and I'm going to have to calibrate the fib a little bit. I think that's perfect enough, I guess. Cool. So yeah, I think the same thing is expected here. There's no change. The 4 hour still has a lot of way to go. Engine is going down for the moment, unless Bitcoin sees some consolidation at this level, in which case money should flow back to all alts, which I don't think will happen as of right now. This was the end of the consolidation period, right? Is that a bullish divergence on the 5 minute? There's no support until 9500 in my opinion, but okay, we'll see. Engine is a good buy at the green zone, period. Nothing to say to that. I don't know the fundamentals here, keep that in mind though. But yeah, from a 4 hour perspective, this looks fine. Going to delete all of this, just analyzing supports and resistances for now, right? So one support is at this level. Makes sense. It's already bounced there. Very nice. But we're coming to test that support in a moment, right? In which case, where is the next support? The next support is at this level, where it's also bounced before, right? And after that, the next support is at this level, right here. Supports 1, 2, and 3, right? I'm going to quickly label those. I think I'll publish this idea, so. These are the lines of support for Engine, and if I redraw the fib now, okay, that makes some sense, right? Where there are regions of support everywhere in this region, right? So this, I think the support 3 will not be hit. I think support 1 won't hold. So support 2 is the expected bounce to the upside, right? Okay, so let's assume for 1 minute that it does bounce at support 2. What should your target be? Okay, so your initial target should be this area. Hold on. Okay, I'll check out UP. Why wouldn't I consider long at 8800? There's a 10 kill line on the 1 day. So the reason I'm not considering a long again is because, like I said, I'm not going to take the risk of my stop loss being hit. So I'm going to assume that if there's going to be a reversal, there's going to be a convincing reversal to 9500. Keep in mind though, I already entered my fiat at 8800. So if I have to see if I enter a long, I'm risking far more amount of a portfolio than I already want to, right? Because I have a very small amount of BitMEX. I don't want to lose that too. You know, it's I'm not losing $500 just because on a hunch that it will go up. I want to confirm reversal, and as much as the TA might just work out, it doesn't always, right? There's still, given my lack of proficiency, I think there's still a 3 in 10 chance that it won't work out. But on the 7 in 10 chance, I'll take your advice here, and I'll probably end up longing a very small position on PTC at 8800. Okay, never mind. So assuming it bounces at 70 at this level at support 2, which is at 0.00001163, you can assume that you can take profit at this level. So the move to the downside, while it's already happening, is looking like this for the moment, right? The move to the upside should be to retest this region, which has also been a prior high, as you notice, right? So there should be some rejection here, perhaps, then a retracement to 50%, and then continuation upwards. So yeah, this is engine for you. Going to quickly publish this idea. Cool. The next thing, I'll probably just quickly load up the cloud. Let's see what the cloud has to say for engine. Yeah, there's nothing the cloud has to say right now. There's definitely a green cloud there that will act as a rejection area if there's a small bounce at this level. There is some, like, you can start drawing flips on the lower time frames, but I'm looking at the daily right now. I do not swing trade alts. I only swing trade Bitcoin because I believe it's slightly less prone to manipulation as compared to these, right? As I've already seen the history enough, I know that it'll act as I want it to, right? So ENJ is done. We're doing Ethereum next, and I've done an update on Ethereum already in the last stream. I'm going to take it into account anyway. So a few weeks ago, but it wasn't a few weeks, it was just last week. Ethereum BTC, right? And I'm not going to do anything new here, not going to reinvent the wheel on my own stuff, right? But it looks like what Ethereum is trying to do is what Bitcoin tried to do. This was on the 4 hour. I'm going to load up the hourly chart with the cloud, right? This could be a really good short entry. So what am I looking at? I'm looking at the cloud that is not flat yet. This is known as a C clamp, by the way. So when the price got somewhere below the Tenkin, and it stayed below the Tenkin, but it broke above the Tenkin eventually, that's the starting of a C clamp, where you can expect the price to retest the key zone, right? So what am I looking at? For now, observe what has happened on Bitcoin, right? So there was a C clamp right here at this level. There was a rejection of the key zone, a failure of the Tenkin, a rejection directly off the cloud, right? And then breakdown to the downside. See what's happening here. Break from the key zone, coming to retest the key zone, right? So what you can expect here is a move to the key zone, followed by a retest of the Tenkin, followed by the retest of the cloud right here, right? And this makes sense from a FIB perspective now. Then continuation downwards. The trend is obviously bearish on the 4 hour chart. I'm going to load it to daily in case it says anything different. I don't think it will. Oh boy. Oh, this is not good. This is not good. But it's fine from my perspective. This is going to be really nice on Ethereum. I think from a short perspective. Okay, so I'm going to curb my excitement here for a second. What we're seeing here is that the Kijun retest, right, it has passed, which means that if the daily of Ethereum closes above this level, the Kijun has successfully acted as or failed to act as a resistance, right? Rather, what should you expect? And I think there are some moving averages in the area to load up the 50 simple moving average. This is the 50 period simple moving average, right? There is a possibility that the price will come to retest the Tenkan or might just break above it. But notice the cloud now, it's completely flat. That's obviously a reaction to this move here to the downside, right? Which means that you can start drawing fibs on a lower time frame and start calling a move as to where it will get rejected, right? So the rejection area on the daily chart is right here. Does that look perfect to you for some reason? Because look at how the cloud is and what it's doing right now. So what you can expect Ethereum to do is have a small move to the upside while Bitcoin is correcting to 8800, right? And that makes sense. Followed by, and this is if Bitcoin continues upwards from 8800, you will see a rejection of Ethereum from this level and a break to the downside as Bitcoin continues the move up and beyond the daily cloud to 13,000. This move could be created, right? This is assuming Bitcoin has a bull run after 8800. So this is the move to the upside. The target to the downside can be drawn, assuming it acts as a resistance here. And the first target is below the cloud, right? On Ethereum. Now, my previous idea had the same thing going for it, and you can see that has worked to some level where I had expected a breakdown and a support at this area. This was again on 15th of February, so it was significantly a long time ago. And people are asking if there's a head and shoulders. I'll just answer that in a second. I don't think there's a head and shoulders, but it doesn't. I'll look at the volume in a second on Ethereum. Give me a second here. So you can see that the move has already happened, right? Where you had a huge break to the downside. And the BTC rally, like I said, will lead to the Ethereum pullback, which is exactly what I'm expecting. Now, on the 4-hour chart, this is what we saw. This is on the daily chart, right? So it now makes sense that if the Bitcoin rally has to continue from 8800, there should be a small move to the upside followed by a huge move to the downside for the Ethereum. And that's about it. I don't think I have to go to the local charts to the 4-hour and lower, because that wouldn't make any sense. Going by the daily cloud, there is a possibility that we go through the 4-hour cloud here, right? So assuming the C-clamp does work out for a minute, that assuming this Kijun does not act as a resistance, it breaks to the upside, you can enter a long move once the T and Cray have crossed either within the cloud or above the cloud, right? If it crosses below the cloud, that's also fine. It's a weak buy, but it's a buy at least. So you can expect an end-to-end play because the daily is asking for a pullback to the upside, right? This does not make sense on the 4-hour momentum. It does make sense on the daily momentum scale, right? So I'll leave this move to you. I'm going to publish this, but again, at your own risk, right? Do your own TA though. I'm neutral on this because there's both a long and a short move. Did I put in okay. Trend analysis, Twitter. Thank you for watching my stream, by the way. I appreciate you watching my TA. I also appreciate your feedback. So if you think I'm doing something wrong, if you think I'm idiotic, if you think I'm too Indian for this, feel free to drop some feedback in, right? Okay, let's look at Bittrex. So I'm not doing any USD ideas on Ethereum at the moment, because I believe this is the one that's most likely to work out as of right now. Yeah. Neo, what are you doing? Why are you doing it? So on the daily chart, you see that this area is acted as an accumulation area now, where while a support has broken, support is holding for now. What you also are seeing is a retest of that support, which has now broken, right? Observe how we broke slightly below the 50 period moving average on the daily chart, and observe how the cloud is flat, the Tenkan and the Kijun are flat. There's a C clamp. What happens? It's already started. The moment it broke below the Tenkan, I was pretty much convinced it's going to the downside. The moment I saw the cloud on the daily, I was also convinced that it was probably going to go lower, right? But I have to step down a few time frames for this to actually see what's going on. And this looks slightly like Ethereum, and I think it will be the same formation where there's a small move to the upside as Bitcoin retraces to 8800, possibly to retest this support. The former resistance right here, right? Let's paint it here. Support. This is a resistance, followed by a continuation of the move to the downside as Bitcoin rallies, right? So this entirely, and this goes for both Ethereum, Neo, and any other altcoins. As Bitcoin tends to consolidate, the value of the altcoin will break to the upside in Bitcoin terms, and probably in USD terms. If Bitcoin does not consolidate, it moves up, the altcoin will go downwards, because people tend to move into Bitcoin as they see Bitcoin rallying and the value of this coin falling in US dollars, right? If the value of Bitcoin falls, people tend to exit crypto, right? Exit to fiat. And in the case of Neo and Ethereum, that's fairly easy to do. So what happens is they fall anyway in USD value, but in Bitcoin value, they sometimes tend to hold. So what do I think is happening? Observe this, right? And what date is this? This is the 6th of February. What date was the bounce? Sorry, the breakdown. Let's see, 6th. Yes, that was also 6th of February. So Neo is the kind of coin that only thrives in the consolidation of Bitcoin, because anything else, and this goes for Ethereum, it goes for Neo, it's going to probably suffer if Bitcoin makes any moves, right? Which is why I don't like holding altcoins, especially when Bitcoin is making a lot of activity. As Bitcoin consolidates, you're more likely to see some profit on altcoins. So as of this part, there's no change on Neo, in my opinion. It's still probably heading lower. The moving average support it. The cloud definitely supports it. I'm going to quickly check the 200 period moving average, see if it's already crossed. Is that a bearish divergence? Yeah, that is. Okay, so this is a death cross. Death cross. What does this mean? It means that the 50 period moving average is crossing below the 200 period moving average on the 4-hour time frame, right? And on the daily, it might not be true. Yeah, the daily hasn't even tested it's tested the 50 period, but the 200 period is fair bit lower, right? So this area is going to act as supported at some point. On the 4-hour chart, because the death cross has happened, right? Usually there is a retest of the 50 period moving average, which is what we're seeing here. See the stock RSI now. Now this was a high. This is the next so-called high, because it's not a high yet until it's broken down and established a downward trend, right? Yeah, that's a very obvious bearish divergence on the 4-hour time frame on Neo, right? So what can you expect? A small move to the upside as Bitcoin collapses a little bit, followed by a huge move to the downside, breaking this support and turning it into a resistance, right? And in the long term, I think nothing has changed on Neo. It's the same as it was before. the next thing that I'm going to see, I think I've already published this idea, I'm not going to change it anymore. The next thing I'm going to see is ICX. Bearish divergence, no divergence, lower low. That was a short play here. Unfortunately, it was like several hours ago, so I missed it entirely. The C clamp is likely. The retest is going to happen because the 15-minute cloud is too far apart. It needs a retrace to the upside, which is not exactly supported by the stock RSI on Bitcoin right now. I think I'm going to post a chart soon. Hopefully, once it breaks above the tank, and I can start calling short moves above the cloud. I want the cloud to fall a little bit lower, perhaps entirely below 9,900, so I can expect a retest of 10,000. At the moment, it looks like if a C clamp has to happen, the price will be pushed above 10,200, which is something that I don't want. A retest of this region means that the bear flag might not have worked properly, right? So 9,900 is the level I'm looking at on Bitcoin for now. Now ICX. I'm sorry this is taking a lot of time. I usually like to be thorough with my charts. I don't want to miss anything deliberately. I'm not using TD sequential as much as I want to, because I want to like focus on normal TA, and I've been moving a little bit into Renko recently. Okay, so ICX looks like it's consolidating. It's had its fair share of being bullied around, right? This is the 1 hour chart. Okay, this is the 4 hour. Okay, so I did have an idea. Oh yeah, I think this failed. My stop got hit. If I had made a trade, yeah, it got rejected out of the cloud immediately. On the short term, this is what happened. There was a move to the upside from my call. This was, I think this was 10%. At which point there was no, there was no TK cross that was bullish, right? There was a small bullish TK cross here, but it broke down. First of all, there's going to be a C clamp very soon on ICX, right? But the idea of the stock RSI being stuck here does not support it. Does that mean it won't happen? No, it's not necessary, because the daily stock RSI is pretty confused, right? So if there is a volume spike, which there is not right now, right? People bought here and have been stopped out everywhere since, right? So this level was where people got stopped out. Here's your C clamp. Your target should be the top of the cloud, right? There are like several problems with this trade, and the first problem is that there's no fib to trace here. Perhaps it's on a much larger time frame, which I don't doubt, but I mean, can you consider this a consistent pattern? There is no definitive trend to it. And what on earth happened here? That's sad to have a rising wedge on a 4-hour time frame. If you're holding ICX, might as well hold it now, because it's certainly not going anywhere now, right? At this point, this is the next support, right here. It's kind of in the middle of nothing. It's too oversold is what I would say, just by looking at the cloud. So if you want to enter into ICX, right, what do you want to see? You want to see, first of all, a break through the key zone and a retest of the Tenkan. A break through the Tenkan and the retest of the key zone, right? So if it reaches the base conversion line, that means equilibrium has been reached. You want to see how it reacts to that and how quickly it reacts to it, right? If there's a huge spike in volume, you have to buy the retrace. Which, for example, if it went from, and this is not an actual trade because neither the bottom and nor the top is decided. So let's assume it starts here, right? And it breaks to this area. If it breaks that far, you can assume that it will retrace anywhere between 50 to 62%. Then continue to the upside. So that's a probable bullish trade on ICX. Keep in mind that it's already below that particular entry, right? So in some minds, this should look like a potential buy right now. I think this is also a symmetric triangle. 1 second. This could be a descending or rather an ascending triangle, right? Something like Ethereum Classic. Going to open the Ethereum Classic chart. Let's see. It looks like Ethereum Classic if you think about it, because there's been one break, second rejection, third rejection, fourth rejection, quadruple top. So that's also what happened on Ethereum, but it happened on a much larger time frame, right? I think it was a daily. Yeah, there you go. So what happened was there was a very clear ascending triangle pattern, right? Do you see that as of right now? Somewhat. It's kind of there, I think. But the safest trade right now is to wait, basically, until there is a retest of this area. I want to see how it reacts. ICX reacts to this area. If it breaks to the upside, we'll enter a retrace move and it will continue upwards, right? There certainly won't be a huge move to the upside in one go, because that's ruled out on a coin that already has pumped enough and then dumped, right? So this is going to be the target for that move. So what you should see is something like this, where it retests a high, falls here, and this is very long. It will break all the way here. So this is the potential gain that we get, right? So if I was to make a long position after, this is after it breaks out, keep this in mind. Oh, hi Evol, how are you doing? So your stop loss would be once it breaks to the upside right here, and this is a fairly good move, 7x, or rather the risk reward is 7 times, right? It's not bad, but let this break out, is my opinion. Wait for it to break out. I think this will also react to Bitcoin. What happened on February 6th? Yeah, it saw a low. So I think there is some potential for this to break down further. I don't recommend a long move at this point on ICX. Yeah, wait on this one. The next coin is Monero, XMR. Kind of a bit of a scam coin, somewhat, I think. It's also having a fork. When is the fork? So okay, I think it's on 14th of March. Fine. Let's see. I think the hard fork is already priced in. Priced in the sense that uh, there's a pretty good likelihood that it will have a sell-off instead of a buy-in, because it looks like it's already accumulated enough in the last few weeks, right? But this is, I think, how every coin has reacted. This was back in October. It's gained so much in BTC value recently. Let's see. So there's some accumulation here, definitely. On the cloud, there's actually going to be a bearish TK cross zone. So yeah, that seconds my move. I think, in my opinion, this should break downwards for now until the hard fork. So this could be a buying opportunity soon enough. Let's see. Symmetric triangle. This is above the cloud on the daily chart, right? And this is what it looks like on a lower time frame. That seems perfect for a breakdown. How far will it go now? I think this is the expected support region, right? So I think what will happen is a breakdown roughly, and let me tell you when this happens. How do you measure when something is going to break down, right? So what the first thing that you have to do is plot the entire move, as in from the starting of the triangle to the apex. I'm going to extend this a tad bit. Cool. Right. It's 336 bars or 56 days. That's how much time it took to make this symmetric triangle, right? So when will a breakdown happen? 336, 168. Anywhere from here and hang on. $52. Right, so anywhere from right, this is the region of the breakdown where you will see a significant move to the downside, right? So it's going to break down anytime soon, in my opinion. It could break up. There's a 50% chance of that since this is a symmetric triangle. So yeah, I think Monero is going to break downwards for now due to the daily cloud. It looks fairly obvious, right? Because if there's even a very small move downwards, the first signal that you will get is the breakdown of the symmetric triangle. So if you want to enter a short, it's the short plays right here, right? Where what tends to happen is that it has a breakdown, it comes to retest. This is where I short, and then you can have your target, right? So this move was a reversal. This was the top. Yeah, this makes sense. From a retrace point of view, it should have a move, at least a 50% correction to the downside, followed by a move up, right? So this could be a potential short close, and then we can continue upside to the upside. I think you can short Monero on BitMEX. Right, so I think I'll be looking for a short move on Monero for the time being. I'm going to make a very clean short entry here and post this. So your stop loss should be at this level. Your target is right here. 3:1 risk reward. Doesn't look too shabby. Okay, let's just move down, retest, and the retest could be anywhere. I really don't have the energy to find where it's going to bounce. I think right here there's a possibility that it'll come to retest, right? Also, I think this is the last coin for today. I'm a little bit tired. Also, I want to game a little bit now. It's roughly 2 a.m. here, so I'm going to continue this tomorrow, hopefully in the afternoon for me, right? I'm going to publish this idea. So thank you for joining me today. If you need, or if you have any questions, feel free to ask. If you think I did a bad job, tell me. If you think I'm wrong, tell me. But the most important thing for me is the feedback. I think I can't really do a good job unless I'm told if I did something wrong, right? So I can know when to improve and how to improve it. The best part about being a technical analyst or a trader is that you get to know immediately when you're wrong and exit a terrible trade. So yeah, I hope I made you some money. Thank you for joining me tonight and have a nice day.